The following podcast is part of the MindBodySpirit.fm podcast network.
With so many probiotics out there, how do you choose one that truly supports your whole body wellness? At BiotiQuest, we believe your gut is the gateway to vibrant health. Our proprietary probiotic guilds work synergistically with your body, using scientifically selected strains you won't find anywhere else. Whether you're seeking better blood sugar balance, deeper sleep, immune resilience, or heart health, our formulas are crafted to support the whole you, physically, emotionally, and energetically. We're founded on microbiome science, backed by transparency, and inspired by nature. And with our 30-day money-back guarantee, you can experience the shift with confidence. Visit biotiquest.com and take the first step toward natural vitality from the inside out.
This is the way it feels to move through summer in Lululemon. Iconic Align softness without the front seam. For our smoothest look and feel ever, summer won't know what hit it. Stretch your limits in the non-stop flexibility of the new Lululemon Align No-Line Pant in select stores and at Lululemon.com.
Wholeness means to me being in a state of joy.
Wholeness means feeling complete, owning my authentic gifts.
Wholeness is really connected. Everything is connected to everything.
Wholeness is where we have access to all parts of ourselves.
All right, so the card we're picking from today is the Divine Masters by Kyle Gray. And it could be, it's also called like the Ascended Masters or whatever. So there's some people I knew in there. There's some couples, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot I didn't, or some I've heard of and not really know much about them, but all right. So the one we got today is Ishtar.
Ishtar.
Let's find out about Ishtar. All I know is the movie.
Yeah, I was going to say, I know it was like a joke of a movie in the 80s, but I never saw it actually.
I didn't either. It was a comedy?
Uh-huh, I think so.
Okay.
But I think it's known for being like a kind of a flop or something.
Oh, it is? Oh, sorry, Ishtar. Okay.
I know.
Is it a place? I don't know.
I don't know.
Okay, so Ishtar, this card means inner leanings, inner learnings, follow your heart, truth prevails. Ishtar, whose name means the precious, is East Semitic, Akkadian, Assyrian, and Babylonian goddess of love and war. She was known as Inanna by the Sumerians and Astarte by the northern Semitic people. She has many names and many faces. So about 4000 BC, she was acknowledged as the Queen of Heaven, protector of the cosmos, and instigator of truth. She was often depicted with 6 and 8 pointed stars, which were originally general symbols of the heavens, but it became associated with Venus, the planet of love and desire. So many people have been challenged by the fact that Ishtar is linked to both love and war. The author says, from my own impressions of the energy she represents, I believe she helps us connect with the root energy of desire, including the desire to fight for what we believe in. When she appears, only the truth can prevail. So your message in this, and hopefully this applies to you, our listeners, information is being revealed to you and it's important to listen, especially as there's a good chance it will bring a war between your head and your heart. You're being guided to listen to your heart, the part of you that makes decisions based on what you feel rather than what makes sense. You may have to take a decision that makes you feel like you're losing out, but in fact will lead you to the feeling of finding treasure or feeling treasured. So seek the truth now. It'll be for the highest good of all.
Well, I feel like that goes along with Dolly. Because she is a little bit of that. She is her, she owns her goddess energy and she has fought for what she has. Like she has stood up for herself and she's a strong little lady, So a little bit about her. Her full name is Dolly Rebecca Parton. So she didn't change her name that she's kept her name. And she was born January 19th, 1946 in Locust Ridge, Tennessee. And she grew up in a poor but musical family in the Great Smoky Mountains, one of 12 children. Her rural,
Wow.
yeah, her rural upbringing and deep family ties heavily influenced her music and ties and
Wow.
values. And she left Nashville the day after high school graduation. Like she, again, like she was like determined to get what she wanted. You know, she left the day after high school, and she's known for her, well, some of her biggest hits are Jolene, 9 to 5, and I Will Always Love You, which is, Whitney Houston covered.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I was the youngest, and my oldest sister was 12 years older than me, so
Mm.
she was listening to, I remember Islands in the Stream, or, that was popular even on like the rock
Oh,
stations, really. It was really popular. And we had that tape or album or something. And I remember listening to it, playing Barbies. Like that was a big memory, is listening to the Dolly Parton album,
yeah.
listening to while I played Barbies. And there's like Applejack, and there's some songs that are really like emotional. When I hear them now, I'm like, oh my gosh, those were so emotional. And she kind of pushed the limits in some of her lyrics for the time. She really told stories and somehow I feel like she played a line where it's not like people really got mad at her, but she was able to say things that others couldn't say. Kind of really, really kind of played a role there.
But she's
And
also very like she tells like one of her jokes is things don't grow in the shade. That's why she has such a tiny waist because her boobs are so big. And so she's just always a little coy, like she's not telling you she's not saying boobs, but
right,
she
right,
knows
right.
what she's talking about and she's sassy. I like
She
her.
is. She is. So one of the things that I like about her is she has what's called the Imagination Library. She founded that in 1995, and she did so because her dad never learned to read. He never had learned to read. And so in support of that, she started this foundation, and it's a free book gift giving program that has given over 200 million books to children worldwide. And she's like one of the first people that will donate to disaster relief. She donated to the COVID-19 vaccine. She gives to education and healthcare, and she's a really strong LGBTQ plus advocate. And I think when they had the was it the hurricane, she did a lot of hurricane relief. Like she's one of the first people to do that. And I admire her because, and wanted to know more about her because she's quietly, but very, very much out there, but still has this quiet part of herself. And it shows to me that strong women, you can have a strong woman and you can be very feminine. I mean, she is completely the epitome of femininity, right? But I would say she is a woman total in control of herself, which is that witchy type vibe. She totally has that and owns that. And what was interesting, so she met her husband the day she moved to Nashville. It's like the first day she was there. So just the day after high school, she meets her husband, and they were married in 1966. And they met outside a laundromat. She was doing her laundry. She was 18, he was 21. And he later said, "My first thought was, I'm going to marry that girl." And they had been together ever since. And he just passed away just within a couple months ago. And it's heartbreaking. And what was interesting, though, to me, um, is, he rarely attended any events with her. He
Very
never,
private.
yeah, never walked the red carpet. And he prefers life at home. And he was running an asphalt paving company.
Oh,
And
really?
yeah, and I just thought, to me, what a relationship that he was fully himself. Like, he did he fed him, and he supported her, and her feeding her. I feel like that's just very rare these days, that you have two individual people that stay together and love each other for so long.
That's true. Did you? I just heard this last night that she did chose to not to go to his funeral
Oh, really?
because she was afraid that it would be all about her and there'd be paparazzi there and all of that stuff. So she chose to like let him have that, which I thought was a really interesting choice.
Wow.
I've been thinking about it all morning, and I just thought I don't know that that's right or wrong. Like it's just a choice, I
Right.
have feelings about it, and I'm sure she
Mm,
watched it. You know, you can stream things.
yeah.
And but that kind of alludes, or it kind of relates to how they lived their lives. Like they were really kind of, they had that separateness, but they probably had private, close time that we didn't
Hmm.
know about. So maybe that's what she wanted to keep. She wanted to keep that part of the relationship private.
Yeah, yeah. And they lived quietly outside of Nashville in this cozy little home, and they loved taking road trips in an RV. Like, could you imagine? He's like driving the RV and you've got Dolly in the passenger, like, and they're going on a trip. I wonder how many times they stopped into places and people did not know who was there.
When you wonder,
Um,
maybe she didn't wear her wig.
yeah,
And
she
so
didn't wear a wig, and so she wasn't recognizable, I guess.
how cool is
And
that? How
I
cool.
know. And she says that he was always funny, supportive, and her biggest cheerleader.
Cool.
And I just want to ask her questions about that because did it ever hurt? Were you ever like, I don't want to go alone. Will you come with me? Or was it more just like, how was that? I feel very anxiously attached, paying
Mhm.
attention, like what reading her story, right? She just did her own thing, and some of those things would be difficult, to go to an awards show all by yourself is that would be, I'd want a buddy. And I just don't, I wonder if that was the case. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
But the second thing I admire about her, and I'd like to talk to her about, is her story with Elvis. So in the early 1970s, after Dolly Parton wrote I Will Always Love You, the song quickly became a hit on the country charts, and it was tender, personal, and written as a farewell to her longtime professional partner and mentor, Porter Wagner. So there was like a TV show, and he was kind of this famous guy, and she was just kind of a side person, but became really popular and almost kind of like outshined him a little bit. And and it was time for her to go on and do her own thing. And he really wanted her to, a lot of his success was dependent upon her, so it was this really kind of difficult breakup they had in their business, breakup. But so she wrote that song is actually written for him. It
Hmm.
was like, thank you for all you've done for me. I'll always love you, but I got to go do my thing. And she had to go do this was her stepping into her solo career. And then, so in 1970s, Presley was already a legend and he wanted to record the song. And so Dolly was thrilled that, this was huge. And because she grew up idolizing Elvis, of course. And it would have been like a big honor to have one of her songs. Because again, she hadn't been a solo career quite too much, not very much yet.
Yeah.
Because that song was on her show, it was on that Porter Wagner show, she hadn't done it kind of on
Well,
her own.
Dolly was pretty much country and Elvis was rock and roll. So that's a huge jump back then, I think in the 70s. So that would
Right.
have been a huge boom to her career.
Yeah, totally. And if you've seen the movie Elvis, have you seen the newest movie Elvis, like the one that was in the
Mhm.
theater a couple years ago? His manager, Colonel Tom Parker, approached Dolly with an offer and to do it, but he had a condition. He said that Elvis would only record the song if they could get 50% of the publishing rights. And this was standard for Elvis's recordings at the time, which, if you watch that movie, it very much was supportive of, his manager.
Mhm.
Um, and his team wanted to own that copyright so they could continue earning royalties for the rest of their life, And so Dolly had to say no. She said no, that they could not record the song. And she says she had written the song from her heart and she owned it. This was big for her. And she was wise enough to know and strong enough to know that this was hers and it was worth protecting. And I'm really, I feel like at a young age, that would be hard to do, to stand up for yourself. I think it would be, I don't know if I would make the same answer or have the same answer.
That's braving the wilderness. And what a great example. Like I'm curious on what her parents were like.
Yeah,
If that's all from her inner self, and it very well could be, or if
yeah.
she was raised to have that voice and that thought, the own her own.
Hmm. Yep. She said that something in her heart just said, don't do it.
Hmm.
And I just didn't. I said no. And so, and again, that's when back to what you were just saying. She had to have learned to trust that inner voice. I feel like we all have that trust our inner voice until we don't. You know what I mean? Something comes
Right.
along and takes that away. And Somehow she had it. And she said it broke her heart and she cried all night. Like she was devastated, but she said no. And I just think at that young age, I mean, she was got to be in her early 20s, um, that she could hold that she could hold that, discomfort of saying no to somebody like that for herself. I think women, we're not great at that. We don't want to cause issues for other people, and we'll gladly sacrifice ourselves in order to facilitate that. But what's interesting is years later, so in 1992, so we're talking 22 years later, Whitney Houston recorded her now legendary version of I Will Always Love You for the Bodyguard soundtrack, and it became one of the best-selling singles of all time. And because Dolly kept her rights, she earned millions in royalties and retained full ownership of her work. So it paid off. But for 22 years, I bet she wondered if that was a mistake. You know what I mean? She wondered if that was a mistake.
That's a long time. I think
a long time.
Oh, to make that choice and just you would second guess yourself for 22 years, and it
wouldn't you?
But I would.
I would. And she said that because of that money from Whitney, that it allowed her to do all of her major philanthropic work, including investing in her Dollywood theme park and funding her imagination library, which has sent millions of free books.
Paradise is back.
It's finally here.
In a new location, Costa Rica. There will be adventure, drama, and romance.
All gas, no brakes. That's my vibe.
Ready to find some love.
But it wouldn't be paradise without surprises along the way.
These kids need to learn.
That's right. Your favorite Golden alums are crashing the beach.
We bring in a party, baby.
Bachelor in Paradise premieres Monday at 8/7 Central on ABC and stream on Hulu.
This episode is brought to you by State Farm. Knowing you could be saving money for the things you really want, like that dream house or ride, is a great feeling. That's why the State Farm Personal Price Plan can help you save when you choose to bundle home and auto. Bundling, just another way to save with the Personal Price Plan. Prices are based on rating plans that vary by state. Coverage options are selected by the customer. Availability, amount of discounts and savings, and eligibility vary by state.
When you wanna grow your list size, pop up like it's hot, pop up like it's hot, pop up like it's hot. And when you gotta boost your revenue, pop up like it's hot, hey, pop up like it's hot, pop up like it's hot. Pick your favorite template, you can tailor to your brand. They're MailChimp-erific, you're gonna be a fan. MailChimp your marketing with our new customizable pop-ups.
And like her theme park is just, in fact, it's having like, I think it's 40th anniversary right now. They're just celebrating. I think it's the 40th anniversary. And it's just, it's like, you think, oh, it's just a theme park, but actually it brings millions of people to this place, and, the place that she loves, it brings money into her home. I mean, it brings so many jobs. It's huge. It's huge. And my son's been there. And he said, there's just something magical about it. It's just, it's different than, kind of like when you go to Disney, there's just like that feel there. Well, if you think of Dolly and how kind she is, and she really doesn't want to hurt anything or anyone. And that feeling kind of exists there at the park. I remember watching a thing once where they were doing kind of an anniversary for 9 to 5. And the other two actresses in that show are kind of activist type people. And there was kind of a ruffle because she didn't want to say something mean. Dolly didn't want to, they were going to say something funny and do like this funny like thing. And she said, no, she didn't want to. And because she didn't want to hurt anybody. And I think that, again, that's standing up for what you believe in or your values, and sticking to them. And I don't know if, I think that would be hard to do, that's just something that she sticks to.
You're always asked. You're probably asked to pick a side. So
right.
I grew up in Atlanta, and there was a water park there called Whitewater. And back then, this was mid 90s, they had Dollywood was the sister park to them. So if you had a membership or a season pass to Whitewater, you could go to Dollywood for free. So our whole family decided to go up there. And, we toured their home. It was tiny. It was just two rooms. And they still have it up there. You can drive up to it and walk through it. And And there's all these shows about Dolly's life. And I remember like it was kind of starting to bother me. And I kind of was like looking at my mom, like, this makes me really uncomfortable. Like she just built this whole place just so that she could be like, look at me. And my mom said, yeah, I can see that. She goes, but look around for just a second. And she was like, who are running these rides? Look at the people running these rides. It was very astute of my mom. And when we would go to Six Flags, it was all teenagers, right? Usually kids working their summer jobs. But you'd look around and these were people from Pigeon Forge. Pigeon Forge people are a little bit backwoods, right? They're country people. And they were the ones where I called them Bubbas at the time. That's not what I would say nowadays. But, they were these people. And she's like, she gave them a career. It wasn't just a job. She, her dad never had a work. Like he was like an itinerant farmer, I think is what he was. Like he just kind of found jobs as he could. And I just think that is a gift that she's giving back to her people, her family, her, that they had a career now and a livelihood for their families. And it changed everything for me.
Yeah, that is a good point. Yeah, I know. I think it's just, and again, she doesn't try to talk you into a different, I mean, she is the show person. She is the show person. She does that stuff, that stuff you have to notice on your own. She's not going to tell you all the stuff that she does, kind of a thing. And she's written over 3,000 songs. She's earned numerous Grammy Awards and is in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And this brings me to the number 3 thing that I really admire about her and want to ask her about. So when Dolly was first nominated for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2022, she politely declined. She said, I don't feel that I have earned that right. I really do not want votes to be split because of me. So I will respectfully bow out, because they were, I guess she was like, no, I don't deserve that. So she felt that because she wasn't a rock artist, that it wasn't fair for those who had built their career in that genre, to be competing with her, and I just thought that was so self-aware for her to be like, nah, I don't think so. I'd be like, award? Okay, but she was like, no, I don't deserve that. But the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame responded by clarifying that the honor recognizes influence and impact, not just genre. And they pointed out that Dolly's music, songwriting, and career had significantly influenced generations of rock musicians. And which, Miley Cyrus is her a goddaughter, and her alone is very influenced by that. And so she eventually accepted the nomination. And she says, if I'm going to be a Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, I'm going to have to earn it. And she promised to record a rock album. And she followed through. True to her word, Dolly released Rockstar in 2023. So she just went, like, it makes me emotional, which is weird. She went right to work to deserve that. And so a year later, she produced an album, and it had 30 tracks. And she featured duets with Paul McCartney, Stevie Nicks, Elton John, Steven Taylor, Aerosmith, Joan Jett, Chris Stapleton, and more. And she covered classics like Stairway to Heaven, Purple Rain, and Let It Be.
That's cool.
She went all rock and roll, and I just thought that was really classy of her to just like, okay, I will accept, but I'm also going to go to work and work really hard.
I'm going to do even better. Yeah. Awesome.
And Dolly will turn 80 in January. This coming January, she is going to turn 80. Can you believe that? She's like a little hot mama.
If you're looking for a plastic surgeon, find hers. Right. They're doing a great job.
Right. And it's funny, she'll recognize that. She'll talk about it, and it's so cute. My sweet daughter-in-law just loves Dolly. Like Dolly, she's a big Dolly fan. And so it's so cute. You'll go to her house and there's like a cute picture of Dolly. And I got her the cookbook. Dolly has a new cookbook coming out. Yeah. And I don't know the story. It's a question I could ask. But it's with her sister, and I get the feeling that, her sister, she's kind of wanting to give a little love to her sister. Like she knows it will sell if she's on it. You know what I mean? So they did this cookbook, and I don't know. I just think she's just a sweetheart. She's just always been a sweetheart and always just kind and generous. And the last question I would want to ask her is, what does wholeness mean to you personally? And I want to kind of change our question, because I want to add this the second half maybe from now on and says, and has that definition changed over time? You know, what does that look like for you and how has it changed? And to see what has brought her a feeling of this completeness or however she describes it. But I just, yeah, she's just so amazing. In fact, a couple of weeks ago, I saw an interview with her, and it was her first time interviewing. I think it was for the 40th anniversary of Dollywood, and here she is mourning her husband, you know. But she goes and does the interview because there's so many people that it's helping. You know, it's not just her, and so of course they're going to ask her about her husband, and you could see, you know, she gets a little emotional, you know, and has to kind of hold it together. You can tell she's good at holding it together, but that there's, you know, it was just an interesting to see in that small minute, just the grief, you know, just how much she, you know, is grieving at the moment. And I don't know if she's got the time to do it. You know, she didn't get a ton of time to do it because we have all these obligations. But anyway, I admire her, and the more I learn about her, the more I love her.
Yeah, that's awesome.
One of the random reasons why I even wanted to talk about her is couple years ago, you know, me and my husband like to go on rides and stuff, and somehow we found this little podcast, and it was, I don't know, I'll have to ask him because it was him that found it. But there was this guy doing a podcast, and his dad was a doctor, and she had to, like, she was out on the road and had to go to a doctor at one point. And then I think it was years later, you know, his son was doing this podcast and was like, Dad, can you reach out? And so they reached out and asked her if she would be on his podcast. And she did. It was like the 6th series or something like that, where they even went to her home, and it was a whole, like, kind of a biography. And I was just like, that was so sweet that she would, you know, she just would show up because she said, yeah, this doctor was really kind to me, and I wanted to say thank you. You know, like, and I thought it was so sweet.
That's so sweet. Really cool. The book club last night. So it's been our 20th anniversary. We're gonna go to Dollywood this summer.
Oh, fun.
Yeah. So we were like trying to think of a book to read. I don't think she has there. We might have found a memoir. I don't know if it was ghostwritten or if she wrote it. So she's written children's books, but I don't know that she has like one that's like a coffee table book that's like about her dresses and stuff.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, maybe you'll have to do the cookbook. You guys can learn some recipes, get the cookbook.
Banana pudding, I'm sure.
There you go. Oh yeah, it is. It is. Okay, so one more thing is when we were young, there's a movie. I want you to watch it sometime. It's called Rhinestone. She's in it. It's called Rhinestone.
Okay.
It is probably, so it's her and Sylvester Stallone in this movie. It's probably like his worst but it is, we would watch it and we laughed so hard. So the premise is that she works at this like restaurant bar kind of thing in New York City, and she's under this major contract, and her boss is kind of sleazy, and they end up making a bet that if she can teach someone to get a standing ovation, if she can teach them to sing to get a standing ovation, she would get her contract back.
Oh my gosh.
And they happen to pick Sylvester Stallone. So it's just so funny when they're teaching him how to sing, and I mean, it's probably like so 80s, but it was so funny. We loved it. And that was probably, between that and playing Barbies, like, that's my relationship with Dolly. So
wow. Yeah, I'll have to look that up. That is going to be definitely a time capsule to watch. So
it's funny. I'm telling you, it's funny.
And now, here is Karen Crawford to give us some ideas about what the stars have in store for us this month. If you want to know more about how the heavens impact you, reach out to Karen at karensmithcrawford.com.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the astrology for July of 2025. And I would like to give a big thank you to the Wholeness Network for having me do an astrology presentation for you, as we've done so. And we're halfway through the year. Can you believe it? I don't know how time is going this fast. That being said, July is a packed month. There's a lot to talk about here, a lot to unpack. most of the time in the summer, planets go retrograde. We've already had Pluto retrograde since early May. And so you can see we have several retrogrades coming up this month, and we'll go through each of those as well as the moon cycles. So let's jump in and get started. So the first retrograde we have this month is Neptune, and it will be about 158 days, and it will go back to 29 degrees Pisces, and that will stop December 10th. And so Neptune moves slowly. We're going to go back to that 29th degree. And the 29th degree has been a big degree year, this whole year, essentially, as a lot of these planets are changing signs, which is why such a big deal is between 2024, 2025, and 2026. So, so Neptune will join Pluto retrograde, and this will be July 4th. Happy Independence Day, America. And back in March, March 30th is when Neptune popped into Aries briefly. And so it'll go back to Pisces and then stay in Aries until 2039. So I was thinking about that, and I'm like, well, what's really happened since March 30th? And when we think about Neptune as spirituality, and Aries as something changing or starting something new, and we have a new Pope. So May 8th was when the new Pope Leo the 14th was elected from the United States. Shocker, right? But amazing. And I love that he spoke in Italian and then Spanish. That was really exciting. And then I was also thinking about sometimes people think might is right. And if we think about what just happened with Iran, there was a bombing on June 22nd. That kind of feels like a Neptune and Aries thing. And so we'll see how these things play out, but sometimes this little taster that we get when a planet first moves into a sign can kind of be the idea of this is how things might play out later. And then the next thing I'm going to talk about is this is what everybody's talking about right now, because Uranus is moving into Gemini. Now, most of the time, Uranus is in a sign for about 7 to 8 years. And it will stay in Gemini once it finally goes in there for good until May 22nd of 2033. Doesn't that seem like a sci-fi movie, 2033? So anyway, so it'll settle for good once we get to May 26, 2026. But right now, popping in July 7th. And so this will be our taster this summer until Uranus goes retrograde. And so if you don't really like what's happening this summer, sometimes when we consciously invite planets or energies to work with us, it sort of gives more of like a pathway for the energy to go. So around November 7th is kind of when we can do a revision date to see if there's anything we want to kind of activate or change ourselves or within ourselves. And then it takes 84 years for Uranus to complete its cycle. So there's not that many people who have been around with Uranus and Gemini. So this is kind of like interesting for us to experience. And when we look at Uranus, we want to think about how is change going to happen for me? What might be kind of unexpected? And so you can see what house Uranus will be moving through wherever you have Gemini. So those early degrees of Gemini is kind of where you're going to see what area of your life Uranus will be working on, where it might offer more flexibility or change your routine in some way or bring unexpected solutions to things you've been working on. Because ultimately, Uranus is a planet of change, and it was discovered in 1781, just after the American Revolution. And so there's something about freedom, awakening, choosing something different, having something different happen. When we think about Gemini, that's the I think sign. So there's a versatility, a curiousness, an adaptability, a wittiness. Sometimes it can be a little superficial. Gemini can be a little superficial or scheming, perhaps. So seeing we're going to shift your perspectives, have even maybe unusual friends, because Gemini can kind of be like the other and our playmates and people like to have fun with. And so 0 degrees to 3 degrees in the mutable signs, or 27 to 29 degrees of the fixed signs, they're going to be stimulated all year, basically, right? Because all these different things changing signs. So Saturn is in a sign for 2.5 years, and then we have Uranus for 8 years, Neptune for about 14, and then Pluto around 20 or so. So there's been big shifts going on. Because Uranus is going to be in Gemini, there's a connection to Mercury. And so Mercury, sometimes we have like a short attention span. So we might need to do things over a couple times during the next 8 years. And when we think about Gemini too, we can think about freedom of speech. We think about social revolutions. And the other thing we can think about too is, Mercury kind of rules our brain, how we think, our consciousness. And some people say that Uranus is a higher octave of Mercury. So one of the things we can think about doing, because Gemini rules the lungs, and we can also think about the brain. We think about Uranus and how it's like the electrical synapses firing and things like that. We can do breath work for our nervous system regulation. So just think about if over the next 8 years, you really work on caring for your nervous system through things like conscious breathing or meditating. I just can't imagine how amazing all of our bodies, how much better we would all focus by having nervous systems that were really regulated and cared for and developed. So developing our consciousness, one of the ways to develop our consciousness, I believe, is through our nervous system and calming ourselves and shifting from the reptilian reactionary to the conscious choosing and sitting with things and becoming the observer to things. So when we talk, one thing that was interesting was that Uranus and Pluto were conjunct in the 1960s, when there were all these activism things for equality with like the races, the sexes, sexual orientation. And so there's going to be a nice trine happening with Uranus and Pluto once Uranus is shifting into Gemini. And so this could be a furthering of that, manifesting those unalienable human rights that we all have on some level, right? And we're entering into this big yang cycle with fire and air having shifted from all that earth and water. So we'll see how this kind of changes the collective. I now want to talk about the full moon in Capricorn that's going to be happening on July 10th at 4:36 Eastern time. And so as you know, when we have a full moon, that's when the moon is now directly opposite of the sun. And the full moon is in Capricorn. So anything around like 16 to 20 degrees of the cardinal signs will be affected. So if you have your sun there, your rising sign, your moon, anything like that, you want to take a look at those things. And so when we have the full moon, there's something about completion, fullness. And what's interesting is that this isn't too far off where the Saturn-Pluto conjunction was in 2020 when COVID had the shutdown. And Capricorn is a lot about the authority, and we think about structures like government and institutions and things like that. So there's a way we can kind of look at like 5 years ago, this was like a hot point area, and looking at how government is now and how do we look at authority from the external versus the internal, how we internalized our own Saturn in the sense of, do I accept the things I need to work with? Am I building my life in a constructive manner? Or am I kind of like trying to like dodge the bullet here and there and trying to get away with the least amount possible? So seeing how you feel with that. And do you feel like you're living from your heart, which is what Cancer kind of asks us to do? Can we experience those emotions that might be a little tougher, but still need to be experienced? So living through our hearts. And Jupiter has been in a square relationship with the Saturn and Neptune. So that's kind of shifting a little bit away now. And so there's kind of like how do we want to grow our structures in a way that's productive to support us stepping into our citizenship in a more self-actualized way, I guess we could say. And Uranus is going to be somewhat close to Venus here. And so that could be like the radical act of love. It's what kind of freedom do we want with our values? So coming back to those feelings of, am I being authentic in my own life? Are there things being revealed around, stability, structure, routine, these things that are kind of mandated into us as people? Okay. Then July 13th, Saturn goes retrograde for 137 days. And this will be at 1 degrees Aries, 56 minutes. And so that is going to stop November 27th when Saturn gets to 25 degrees Pisces, 9 minutes. So again, we're talking about Saturn, and Saturn, represents our governments, our institutions, corporations, things that have a lot of structure to them, paradigms. And Saturn, when it turns retrograde, just like several days later, it's going to go right by Neptune. Now, they're not going to be conjunct exactly until February of 2026, but this month might give us a preview in some ways about what we can expect looking into February of 2026 when they are actually conjunct. And the reason why everybody's buzzing about this is because they're going to be conjunct at 0 degrees Aries, which is considered a really important point for the entire world. So we'll see what happens with that. So that will be revealed more fully, but just kind of seeing what that brings up within you, what you see happening in the news, things like that. And so when Saturn goes retrograde, it's a good time to look at our priorities, look at how we're managing our life. What are we building? Maybe there's a couple of projects we're working on, but authentically, we really feel like there's just one that really sings to us. So permission for you to decide, okay, my resources will be better spent focusing on this one thing and giving it my all, because this is what's really calling me. I want to climb this mountain because I like that mountain. And I think I can grow from this mountain experience versus the drudgery of just doing it to do it, just because I have to do it. So finding those things that excite you, that bring you the joy, and revising your energy, revising how you're attacking things, ultimately feeling like I'm empowered to do this, because that Aries energy is the courage to do the hard things, Okay. And then Mercury goes retrograde. Oh, this happens, 3 to 4 times a year. So this isn't as big of a deal because it's pretty frequent, but there are people who definitely can feel Mercury retrogrades. So as always, it's double check your emails, look over that text really quick, be to the airport on time, if not early, for travel plans, and just kind of being wise about those things. And Mercury's going to be in Leo. And so the actual retrograde is 24 days, but we always had that shadow period before and after. So, and with all these other planets going retrograde, it just might not be a bad idea just to take that extra time, just to make sure you're really conscious of what you're saying, what you're doing. And because Uranus is shifting into Gemini, Mercury rules Gemini. So again, there could be some surprises or exciting things that happen, unexpected things that might happen with communications and such. Okay, and then we also have the new moon coming up, and this is going to be at 2 degrees Leo. And when we have the new moon, the sun and the moon are together, it's a dark sky. And that Leo energy is very creative, very vibrant. It's about exploring our talents, playing that song or that thing, Dance Like Nobody's Watching You, kind of a feel where it's like we can honestly just create because it's something that's bubbling up within us and not being judgy or super critical about us. So maybe looking at where you see Leo in your chart, early degree Leo, and thinking to yourself, okay, maybe there's an invitation here for me to be creative about this area of my life. And so, for example, this is the 9th house. So the 9th house, we could say something about, maybe there's something I can be creative about what I'm learning in this part of my life right now, taking an interesting art class at the community college or something like that, or maybe doing some theater. face painting, improv would be great. Yes. And what's interesting is that we have Pluto very tightly opposite this lunation. So this might be one that on July 24th, 2025. So this might be when you feel more powerfully. Pluto always gives us this opportunity to change, to shift, to surrender, to let go of the things that no longer serve us. So maybe we can, say goodbye to that negative voice and just say, hey, you get to have a seat right now. I'm going to go have fun and enjoy things. And moving out of that comfort zone, right? We also see Saturn and Neptune in Aries. They have this nice, I circled this in red because this makes a trine to the new moon in Leo. And so this can give you like an extra spiritual component, or maybe really making a serious commitment to something that you want to build around your creativity, that we can commit to for ourselves. And then we also have Uranus shifting into Gemini. And this makes, I circled it in pink, because there's this nice sextile between Uranus and the sun and moon, and also between Uranus and Saturn and Neptune. So this kind of brings in an eccentricity, something kind of stimulating, something kind of electric. Uranus, when it has that softer aspect, can be something that's kind of unexpected, but like pleasant surprise, perhaps. And what we're going to see with these outer planets is what they call like a minor trine. So we're going to see this minor grand trine. So we're going to see this Uranus talking to the Pluto with a trine, but then there's this nice sextile. Okay, so there's going to be this next 2026, 2027, we're going to be seeing this little shifting of these 4 outer planets, kind of giving each other supportive, kind of friendlier aspects, which is nice. So we'll see how that plays out. So that is what I have for you regarding July. And as you can see, it's a lot of things. And we're really, it just does feel like things are moving faster. And it's, I think, ultimately a paradigm shift in what are we as a collective believing, because I think ultimately a lot of this is about our consciousness and how we are choosing to be energy stewards. So looking at these different things happening, a lot of invitations to contemplate things, which, we don't always take the time to like sit and think about something, but that's really what contemplation is. It's almost like a form of meditation where we could get insights about things, and we just allow something to kind of unfold for us. So I think it's a great time to start working on our nervous systems. So when we have that resiliency for surprises that might pop up, we can kind of stand in our powers with that. And I'm very excited to be with you today, and I will see you in a month. Take care, everybody.
Hey, friend, it's Chalene
and Mechelle, and we're excited to tell you about our Wholeness Library membership.
It's a vast library of videos and holistic tutorials with experts around the world who teach everything from energy healing to Reiki to chakra work, mediumship, guided meditations, and more.
With our Wholeness Library membership at just $5.55 a month, you have access to all of that online, plus monthly live Zoom meetups and our app for learning and healing anywhere, anytime.
No pressure, just love. Try us with a free 7-day trial membership, and you can cancel at any time.
Come to thewholenessnetwork.com and enjoy everything from A to Zen.
See you there.
Are you struggling to find light in the darkness? Are you wondering, is this all there is to life? I'm Jacob Cooper, host of the Wisdom of Jacob's Ladder podcast, and I'm passionate about helping people seeking support in all areas of mind, body, and spirit. As a licensed therapist and author, I will share wisdom from my own near-death experience and glimpse into the other side. Join me here on the mindbodyspirit.fm network and wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, I'm Kimberly Meredith. Welcome to the Medical Intuitive Miracle Show. Let me help you with healing, using medical intuition and connections to your loved ones on the other side. On my podcast, The Medical Intuitive Miracle Show, I demonstrate my abilities with show participants in offering physical and emotional healing. Join me as I share these powerful teachings and welcome some amazing guests too. Listen to The Medical Intuitive Miracle Show on mindbodyspirit.fm and wherever you get your podcasts.